January 2nd, 2014. Perry Logan greets the new day. Perry!
What?
Why don't you go jump off a cliff?
Okay.
And so Perry Logan hurried to the cliff, eager to jump off of it. Why was Perry Logan so very suggestible on January 2nd, 2014? Was it that he'd been studying the dodgy topic of Righty Logic, the study of the strange, paradoxical, and highly emotional ways in which the right wing think and talk?
But of course, you fool! They're nothing more than Tories! Tories are as useless as turds. If you ask me, those bloody Tories should have been tossed into the Boston Harbor along with the tea! Right, Ben? Right, Tom? Right, George? Right, Ben? Right, Tom? Damn straight! Now back to the show.
You see, here on January 2nd, 2014, Perry's been watching the difficult rollout of Obamacare and other weird things that are going on, and he notices the righties have their own way of thinking. He calls it Righty Logic. For example, the best way to help the poor is to screw them over. Here's Perry Logan to explain.
The Perry Logan dancers!
Righty Logic. Hey, anyone who's ever tried to talk to one of our brothers and a few sisters over on the right knows that they have their own logic. They have their own, as I've said many times, practically their own universe, alternate universe, fantasy world, bizarro world. Those are the terms that describe our situation. So, you know, if you have your own world, a reality, man. Yeah. Then, of course, you're going to need your own logic, and this is Righty Logic. And one thing, just to give you an example, is that the folks on the right, conservatives in the U.S. especially, will tell you that the best way to help the poor is to screw them over. Well, of course they don't put it that way. I'm putting it that way to highlight it. But they will tell you, you can't, if you give them welfare, they get dependent on welfare. And if you let them have unions, then they'll like get good wages and there'll be inflation or something terrible will happen. In other words, if you flow money, the government or anybody, flows money to the poor, unemployment checks, Social Security, the whole bit, anything, healthcare, whatever. Anything that is like takes resources and actually gets it into the hands of the poor. Well, the right will tell you that's really dangerous. Now, apparently the best way to help the poor is to screw them over. Now, they don't put it that way, but that's what they're saying, okay? Yeah. So that's one thing about Righty Logic, okay? Here's the other thing that's kind of weird. Apparently the best way to help the rich is to give them even more money. Think about it. Think about it. This is the folks on the right, once again, they will not speak so bluntly as I'm putting it. But their logic is that, if you give any money to the poor, it'll screw everything up. They'll explain the disaster that happens by putting money into the hands of the poor. The rich, by contrast, you see, we can't give them too much money. That's Righty Logic. That's Righty Logic. Welcome to Righty Logic 101. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to get back to my jog. Hey, that's right. If you think about it, conservatives are always explaining how they will make the world better for everyone by screwing them over. Haven't you noticed this? For example, conservatives will tell you it helps women to have their abortion services cut off. It helps workers to have their unions crippled. It helps voters to be forced to get IDs. It helps people on welfare to have their welfare cut off. You know, this is what they say. And yet, by the same token, the rich and the corporations feed off the trough of the government more than all the mythical welfare queens that can dance on the head of a pin. Mythical welfare queens that dance on the head of a pin. Oh my! Yes, Perry, I said it. You know, Wall Street gets billions every year. Our major corporations wouldn't last 5 minutes without huge infusions of taxpayer cash. I can't believe Americans don't rebel over this corporate control. That's the weird world of Republican logic. Kind of like an Escher drawing, don't you think? If you study Republican logic long enough, you'll soon see it amounts to a kind of an inverted universe. As the very suggestible Perry Logan fell off the precipice, he realized it's true. Republicans do live in a kind of an upside-down world where Obama is a lefty, a progressive, a communist, a Stalinist, a socialist. Let's say it all together. A communist, a socialist, a far lefty, a Stalinist, a Nazi, a fascist. They've said it all. Somehow in Republican logic, Obama can be all those things. May God help us and save us. Perry, are you in brain lock or something? Have you been trying to fathom the paradoxes and difficulties of righty logic? You fool! You fool! Hello. Woo! It's, Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Right here, it's coming out of like January 2nd. Okay, it's not really New Year. But I mean, it's like close, okay? Happy New Year. 2013 was this year where we were all glad to say goodbye. So, goodbye, 2013. I'm here to explain that our introduction to righty logic, which is, you know, most political people are a little familiar with this kind of far out, loony, dingbat, moonbat, wingnut, fringe, all the things they hate to be called the right, have their own logic, okay, and I think, in a big way, we got introduced to it with Reaganomics. Remember Reaganomics? No? It might have been just you're too young, or like you repressed it, but actually it was a pretty important thing historically, a thing called Reaganomics, and while I'm not an economist, it was, in my opinion, I guess I'm just sort of thinking maybe I get the general idea of it. The general idea had to do with things like making government smaller. And you know, this is still all the rage, certainly on the right. The lunatic, lunar, far out people we love. By righty logic, government was the problem. That was one of the things we learned. And one solution would be to make it smaller and spend less. And basically, that old right-wing thing of screw people over. They say the best thing we should do, we should screw you over. And it somehow worked. Maybe the 1980s were the dumbest decade ever. I was there, and it did seem a little dumb because, well, the idea that government is the enemy flew. In the 80s, Reagan said, government is the problem, not the solution. And I'll be damned if it didn't fly. This after the New Deal bailed us out of the Great Depression, with some help from World War II. Now, my friends, Whether or not the 1980s was the dumbest decade ever, I'm not sure, but it was dumb enough. Let me use an analogy, okay? Is it okay if Perry uses an analogy with children present? Okay, fully clothed, I deliver an analogy. And it's a familiar one. Consider society as being like the human body, okay? You know, I'm not inventing anything new. We're always talking about the body politic. Very often it is talked about as a body. It's an analogy. And, you know, we're doing this because I think it's a very good one in this respect. Okay, human body is likened to a society. Then what part of the body would the government be? No jokes. You can say, there's a lot of good jokes there. Well, a few good jokes. But the government would, of course, be the brain or the head, right? No? Central processor. So we're doing an analogy here, and these are harmless, okay? These are harmless. But I'm just sort of analyzing the righty logic that government is the problem. You see what that says? It's kind of like saying your brain is the problem. In this analogy, if government is the brain, what the righties are saying, perhaps without knowing it, is that they want to make the brain smaller. Don't you see? I think the analogy is a good one. I mean, and it's just an analogy, but it's a little like saying, you know, the brain is our problem. The brain is a problem. The brain is my problem, not my solution. I'm going to have myself lobotomized. There you go.
Well, there you have it, Tim. Yes, Jim. Saying that government is problematic or evil or should be downsized is a little like saying, I'm suspicious of my brain, I guess I'll have it lobotomized. Not a good idea, Tim. In no way does the Perry Logan Show or its representatives Tim and Jim recommend that anyone be lobotomized ever. So, Tim. Yeah, Jim. How do we get out of this brain? Well, who says we get out of here, Tim?
In you go, guys. In you go, guys. Just a moment. Take that, Tim and Jim.
You little bastards!
Shtick.
Come on, we're going on the web!
Well, it beats jumping off a cliff.
It certainly does. But as Perry traveled around the web, he saw
The righties were able to see Obama as all of these different things, and Obamacare too.
Obamacare is socialism. Obamacare is Stalinism. Obamacare was designed to fail.
How could Obamacare be all these different things? Someone must be using righty logic, by which you can always believe what you want to believe. And Perry found himself at Forbes, a respected, albeit pretty darn far to the right magazine on the web. And the good people at Forbes asseverated
The Obama administration represents the pinnacle of progressivism, and this caused Perry Logan, a progressive, to prick up his ears. And Perry thought to himself, how far to the right do you have to be to think Barack Obama is a progressive? How far to the right do you have to be to think Barack Obama is a socialist? Happy New Year! Happy New Year! Okay, same old tricks. I did not make a resolution to stop pretending to play the brush, okay? I made no New Year's resolutions because that implies free will. Fretwork. It's all on the fretwork. Je m'amuse. To stop being silly for a moment, I really was up there visiting Forbes, a magazine on the web, the web version of Forbes, where I meant no harm. They're pretty, I think they're pretty darn conservative. They're just kind of like a magazine of the moneyed class. It's pretty much, Forbes is of little interest to you and me, let's just say. All right. Well, their viewpoint is very clear, you know. What serves the corporations serves the world. Government should be smart. Don't forget, government should be smart. Like making your brain smaller. Okay. Well, but in any case, there I was, not really looking to make trouble, but there was, well, an article, you know, kind of like, you know, crabbing about Obamacare. Hey, you know, the best thing about Obamacare or the ACA is that it's kind of torturing the right. Could I just take a moment to say that for all their logicality, the right are just kind of being tortured by Obamacare, aren't you? You can't even deal with it. You're dying here. It's like making your life shorter, second by second. Ah! And once again, the Perry Logan Show has fallen into the sun. I can't believe this keeps happening. In, come on, in. Sorry. Hey, they had it coming. There I was at Forbes, in all seriousness, and this article that was crabbing about Obamacare, and, you know, the right in torment. The right are in torment. And this tormented writer said that the Obama administration represented the pinnacle of progressivism. Imagine my surprise. Imagine the surprise of moi, a card-carrying progressive, if there ever was one. I knew a guy who really laughed like that, okay? And he was cool. And I said to him, right-wing brother, Obama is not a progressive? I flatter myself that I, a progressive, would know a progressive when I see one, yes? You know, they probably won't even give me that. But the right knows better than the left what a lefty is. And that, my friends, is Righty Logic! And I said to him, my friend, my righty friend, you have been using Righty Logic, and I guess Righty Logic turns Obama into some kind of left-wing extremist. If he's the pinnacle of progressivism, right? Yeah. Well, it's kind of as I feared. Could I just take a moment to say, quite seriously, I have been kind of predicting bad things. Well, you know what's part of the fun? Yay! Not really wishing. No, I don't think so. But I was just kind of thought things were going to go down the tubes the minute I got a load of the Obots. That's the kind of short history of Perry Logan's attitude.
My big attitude change came in 2008. When I feel the Democrats went bad, I think they were taken over by Obots. This is my story. This is my kind of like belief that the Democrats were taken over by a disagreeable group of people, Obots. I guess they're still around. And these are the ones who would call you a racist if you touched your nose.
Racist!
It's for the best. Using Righty Logic, I had to blow them away. It's for the best. In the same way that, cutting off unemployment is just a good thing. It's Righty Logic. No, my friend, Barack Obama, I believe by his own admission, is a blue dog Democrat. I was trying to explain to my Forbesian friends. I'll probably get thrown out. I always get thrown out for not doing anything that should get you thrown out. Aww. Could I just take a moment to complain that, I think everybody loves free speech until they see some of it or hear some of it. I don't threaten people, it's like, is it the metaphors? It's probably the metaphors. So I honestly hope I didn't hurt my whole rep at Forbes by pointing out what I thought was a pretty obvious thing. Unless you're using some weird kind of righty logic, Obama is a blue dog Democrat. Y'all know what a blue dog Democrat is. I don't know why it's a blue dog. I don't understand that image. But Obama is I think by his own admission, really. He's a blue dog, and in my opinion, a blue dog, that's a right-wing Democrat. Oh, okay, it's a Democrat. It's a Republican posing as a bloody Democrat. That's Obama, yeah. So, how did the right get him into he's socialist, he's communist, he's lefty. Come on, everybody. He's socialist, he's communist, he's Stalinist. And so you have the weird thing that in Righty Logic, they know what a lefty is better than you. And I don't think these folks have risen to my little challenges. If you think Obama is a socialist or a communist, find a real socialist or communist who walk amongst us, keeping a low profile for obvious reasons. But they're perfectly okay. Would you people calm down? The righties think, they think people with varying viewpoints are total threats. That's part of that righty logic thing, in my opinion. And I'm sorry, this show went into the sun.
Another maimed kid for gun control. We see Righty Logic at work when the gun guys tell us the solution to all those gun deaths and all that gun mayhem and all the wounded children like me is more guns. Now that's Righty Logic.
It sure is, pantomime maimed kid. It's more Righty Logic. And I said earlier that our friends on the right will often have a paradoxical quality. Taking money away from the poor will help them, and denying women abortion services is going to help them. Getting people, throwing them off of welfare and unemployment is going to help them. They will say that. So you have to say, ultimately the message is that the best thing to do to help people is to screw them over. Otherwise, you're a soft-eyed liberal, right? No. Don't forget, it's not the liberals who reject entire areas of science. That's Righty Logic. It's just barely 2014 as I do this show, and already there's a huge list, as long as your arm, of terrible things that have happened with guns. And I do think there's actually a natural human instinct to say, we have got to confiscate these suckers. Everything else is BS. Well, but the gun folks who are nothing if not zealous want to jump in there to call everyone Nazis and stuff, Thanks, yeah. Okay. And may I note, the American Nazi Party, a real organization, is adamantly pro-gun. As are America's anti-Semites, white separatists, white supremacists, Klansmen, okay? They're just all people who are of a real fascist stripe are adamantly pro-gun. Go figure.
Perry,
What?
how about a tramp routine?
Okay.